Hello, welcome to another Tier 10 cruiser inspection. We're doing Lighthouse cruisers a lot lately, aren't we? We looked at Goliath, which I recommend Lighthouse build solely for the fact that there's really no point in playing the ship at long range, so you might as well maximize DPM. We then looked at the Henry that I think kind of only has a bit of relevance in the Lighthouse build, especially considering that you can play Condi. And now we're looking at the Venezia, and the Venezia is another Lighthouse build. Basically, for the sole reason there's just no fucking reason not to. Back in the day, there was a reason not to. You didn't have Venezia Ledge Mob, which is one of the most bananas, just kind of objectively overpowered, too strong ledge mods in the entire game. It's actually crazy how much of a pure buff it is to the ship. Venezia was a ship that always actually did pretty well with a Lighthouse build, but was very difficult to make work because you would be without this smoke for 3 minutes at a time. You don't have Henry's dodging ability, really. You have a better hull, but you don't really juke shells like Henry does. So, start of the game. You can see in the chat me and my destroyer player here making a bit of a gentleman's agreement that I'm probably going to break because he did ask for me to have a brain. And of course, if you watched any of my cruiser gameplay, the brain will be shut off at some point during this replay. Trust. But the reason why it's just so good is look at this cooldown on the smoke. 100, sorry, not 100, 1 minute and 15 seconds. This is realistically, against most battleships, about 2 salvos that you have to live, and then you get the smoke back. And it's just unbelievably powerful. Venezia, like I said, is a ship I pretty much always played, at least about half the time with steering and slot 5 on a Lighthouse build. Because, well, basically what is Venezia's issue? Well, the issue is just the DPM. The raw DPM is quite lacking, and you cannot start fires. Here, I loaded AP, and probably not worth it. In basically, when do you want to load AP? You want to load AP when it's a target you absolutely will citadel multiple times. Now, a flat Bayard is definitely going to meet that criteria, but you saw he took 1 citadel, an overpen, a couple of pens, and a couple of ricochets. That salvo probably would have been better if I had just stayed on sap. Another thing that the Venezia Ledge mod lets you do that you couldn't really do before is play at close range with Lighthouse Venezia. You could play at close range in Lighthouse Venezia back in the day for short periods of time, but like I have the smoke back, so I never need to, I probably shouldn't have even used it in that situation. Probably maybe a bit of a waste, but you see that I'm trying to go forward because I am trying to, the Montana you see is coming over here. So I don't want to be permanently stuck on this corner. I do want to reposition like a little bit. My ultimate plan is to kind of try to trail through here, trying to keep this rock between me and the Montana, and then looking for an opening to get in on this North Carolina. But, well, why does Venezia want to play close? Well, it's because of the nature of sap. And we're running heavy sap, so one of these salvos, if I penetrate all 15 shells on a target, is about, theoretically, it's about 30,000 damage. You have 15 shells, they do almost 2k a pen. Now, in reality, can you ever hit a target for 30,000 damage? Absolutely not, because unfortunately, saturation mechanics exist in this game. So basically any salvo you hit on almost any target in this game that does like 12 to 15k with Venezia Sap, that part of their ship is pretty much instantaneously, you see here I'm using Sap because this guy proved he knows how to dodge, but that part is instantly saturated. And so the closer range you get, and there you go, 15k, definitely a way bigger hit than when I got a Citadel earlier, right? But when you are close enough range in Venezia, it doesn't have like crazy improved accuracy like a Zao or anything. The accuracy is fine, but you get to target unsaturated parts of ships the closer you get to them. You can kind of do it at longer range. It's just way less likely that you're going to effectively do it. So like here, if this was, old Venezia, no ledge mod, I would never be able to do this because the smoke would never have come back in time. And now I can just play. It's this combination in the Lighthouse Venezia with ledge mod that you get to kind of have your cake and eat it too, in a way. You get to farm at range with much improved DPM, but then you also get to constantly push in and out. Um, Probably the smart play here would be to not shoot, but this is what I mean by unsaturated parts. You see how his bow was not darkened until I shot him? So it's just an absolutely demonic amount of damage. It's a third of this guy's ship, right? Because he's in North Carolina. And you see now his ass is not quite saturated either. Um, Unfortunately, I got a couple of non-pens. A couple of those hit probably his main belt. But basically 2 Venezia sap salvos, and this guy has lost almost his entire ship. And the Venezia does obviously very decent damage at long range, but this is what I mean by you want to play close. I'm going to trade a lot of HP for this, right? I'm going to trade a lot of HP for this. Mainly because I didn't really even notice the carrier was coming in to kill me until it was kind of too late. And I could have dodged those torpedoes that you saw me hit all 3 of, but it would have required me to stay broadside to the Montana, and I really did not want to do that. So the smoke is coming back in 30 seconds. Again, that means I just have to kind of live like maybe 1 salvo, and the Montana for some reason shot someone else. That's probably because a couple of times he shot me, he got like no damage because I dodged semi-effectively, and so he gave up, but he absolutely should have tried to kill me. Especially you see the damage I just took there. I would have 100% died if he had tried to kill me. So we're just trying to live. You see I get the smoke back in 5 seconds. This fire will not kill me, but I need to not take a hit. And the smoke is back. So the mentality of Lighthouse, ledge mod Venezia is very similar to it's a very strange comparison, but kind of the thought process you have when you play the daring of burning through the utility. I'm not trying to have 3-4 of these smokes left halfway through the game, right? I mean, if there's no reason to use them, you don't need to use them. But how much game impact did that smoke when I ran through A give us? Well, it got us a kill on the North Carolina. I took pretty much all of the heat off of my entire team for almost a minute straight, and I still get away with it. You could argue the Montana should have killed me, but him choosing to not shoot me let me live. And now I've got another minute and 15 left on this cooldown. And I got 20 seconds on the heal, so I got to get to this next heal, right? I got to get to this next heal, but there's also a Bourgogne that's what's spotting me right now. So I got to kind of finesse this. I need to get far enough on the rock to dodge the Bourgogne, but I don't want to pop out. Hitting quite a nice amount of torps on this Montana. He is rather fond of not touching his A, S, or D keys, which is very nice. So I get through this next heal, and then I only have 40 seconds to get to the next smoke. So I'm just popping the spotter plane to see the Montana, because he's probably pushing since the Z could not see him. And then my hope here is that the Z can get in a spot where, with my spotter plane spotting the Montana, that maybe he can smoke and farm this Monty a little bit. Now, it's tempting to sit on this rock. It's very tempting in this situation to sit on this rock for another minute to get the next heal back. Very tempting. But I think ultimately that would be a big mistake, because if this Montana gets to keep pushing and he gets me perfectly nose in, and I'm not maneuvering, then, the upper bow on the Venezia is 25, so he's just going to nuke me through the bow. So it's time to go. It's time to push again. This is what I mean. You can constantly be pushing in this thing. It's kind of just like the perfect ship for how I like to play this video game. It's just kind of the perfect ship, and this guy makes a gigantic mistake. That is not what you're trying to do. And then it's an instant. You see that 16,000 damage. I'm spotted by the Bourgogne, but, realistically, the odds that he does 13k to me, even if he shoots all 12 guns at me, pretty much fucking non-existent. It's not really something I'm worried about. And you see here, I'm trying to hit his bow, right? But just him turning in a little bit causes 3 of my 6 rear shells to miss. Um, and that's what I mean. Like you can and definitely should target the spots on ships that you pen everywhere and you over or and are unsaturated, but that is just not practically viable at very long range. Like assuming someone is not just AFK at their ship, right? Like assuming they're touching their keyboard, um, you're probably not gonna like stack shells on them. But then you get inside of like 10 kilometers in this thing, and you can semi consistently just stack like 12 out of 15 shells on an unsaturated part, and that is how you get big damage in the Venezia, is hitting these unsaturated targets. And when you just kite at really long range, um, deck pens can happen at super long range. You start to get into the non-auto bounce territory on deck pens, but you don't get into the guaranteed pen territory on your impact angle. So you don't want to rely on deck pens at long range. That kind of means that at very long range, typically you're only really penetrating superstructure, and then if it's a squishy upper belt, that's kind of all you can really afford to aim for. So while you will get very big damage the first salvo, maybe even the first 2 salvos, and then if they heal up a bit, you can get some more big damage. The damage does start to fall off a cliff. Now, by falling off a cliff, I don't mean it becomes bad, because even on a fully saturated, Montana superstructure, you can still reliably hit them for 10,000 damage. But those big, gigantically juicy hits where you like take a quarter of a 100k HP battleship's HP pool, yeah, that kind of really only happens consistently up close. Um, we have Sansonetti, of course, on this ship. Sansonetti, one of the most ridiculous premium captains in the game, doesn't really get talked about enough. But the Sansonetti captain is doing too much. As my wife would say, it's just doing too much. Uh, it's making your ship way too good. It's giving you consumable action time, which buffs the heal, buffs the spotter plane, buffs the smoke. It gives you range. It gives you ridiculous shell swapping time on your guns. It gives you not quite as good. I think Halsey Confederate is 20% buff to reload, only giving you 15%. But I mean, having this reload on Venezia is retarded. I mean, it's objectively fucking retarded. Like, these ships are theoretically, and this is why to me this is one of the dumbest ledge mods in the game. Look at this reload. A sub 13-second reload on guns that are more than capable of basically 10 to 20k'ing you at legitimately any angle. Like, perfectly stern in, I can still 10k this guy with sap, right? Yeah, it's just absolutely a demented ledge mod and captain experience. I don't understand why it gets like a pass, because this is kind of also like the objectively easiest version of a lighthouse ship to play. Like I said, like Henry is not super high skill, and it's not, but Henry doesn't have this like get the fuck out of jail free card when you completely fuck up. And this thing gets 5 of them with a barely minute cooldown between them. Um, As such, let's talk about, we always talk about battleship power creep in these videos. Very, very less susceptible to battleship power creep in the Venezia. Much, much less than many of these other cruisers that get overmatched by 30. One, you're low in the water. You're kind of hard to hit. 2, you have incredible turning circle that we're kind of utilizing a bit with steering gears instead of prop mod. You have 5 of these smokes. You at least get an icebreaker in this thing too. I mean, it is much less susceptible to overmatch bullshit than a lot of these other cruisers. Mainly just down to the fact that you just get you get like almost 5 minutes a game of immunity, right? You get almost 5 full minutes of just straight up immunity in this thing per game. 100% one of my favorite cruisers. I probably forgot to do the summary at the start, but definitely one of my favorite cruisers in the game. Incredibly fun to play, and the ledge mod has turned the Venezia from a very AFK kiter, borderline griefing your team. Venezia before ledge mod could be argued that you were, when playing it solo at least, were basically trolling the fuck out of your team, because it doesn't farm damage like Hindenburg any of these other cruisers, even like a Des Moines that brings tons of utility, it just doesn't farm damage like them with a standard build. And it was kind of rough to play Lighthouse. I still did, and I still enjoyed it. But it was undeniably rough with a 3-minute cooldown instead of like a minute 15 cooldown on the smoke. Undeniably hard to stay alive in many situations. Now, this thing is like a fucking cockroach. Like, if you don't consistently chunk this thing for 20 to 30k, you just aren't fucking killing it. You just aren't killing it. And that was kind of the dilemma when playing Venezia solo pre-ledge mod. Is, do you go standard cruiser build with concealment and try to push in close and support your destroyer? Well, the problem is that your destroyer player is probably a fucking bot because it's random battles and you're solo queuing because you hate your life, right? Like I do. Like I hate my life in this making these videos. So that was kind of tough sometimes. A lot of the times you'd be kind of forced to burn a smoke just to run away, and then you're without the smoke for 3 goddamn minutes. So that was always tough. Then it's like, well, if I take Lighthouse Venezia, especially with the steering gears in slot 5, I am much more survivable because I can dodge a lot better. But I can't push in to help my destroyer because I'm going to have to use the smoke to turn out, right? I'm going to have to use the smoke, and then I can't push in again for 3 fucking minutes. So the ledge mod on Venezia is like almost unprecedented in my opinion, because not only is it objectively the correct choice, no matter how you're playing this, you can play this non-Lighthouse build the captain 100% normally, and then just have 14-kilometer concealment with the ledge mod, 100% in like superior to just 12.5 or whatever it is concealment standard Venezia without ledge mod, 100% superior. So it doesn't even matter how you're playing or building the ship. The ledge mod is like objectively the correct slot, which kind of instantly makes it, we would say an S tier ledge mod, a ledge mod that you put on and it never even you vomit in your fucking mouth at the concept of not playing with it, right? But then it also lets you play Venezia the way like it wants to be played, and it wants to be played with heavy sap. It wants to be played with reload with no concealment, because this is a DPM ship. I mean, sap, cruiser sap is effectively, this high caliber sap, it's effectively DPM because. Yeah, if they go 0 degrees nose in, you can only hit like superstructure, right? But I mean, and that's at long range. Even at very close range, like 8 kilometers, super close range, ships that are like 5 degrees to you, I guarantee the tip of their bow is more like 20 degrees, right? Because of the profile of hulls in this game. Just the profile of hulls is making their B very accessible. This probably should have been a sap salvo. I was just really, really hoping. So you see there, 7 penetrations, 4 overpens, and 2 ricochets. That was 13 out of 15 shells hitting this guy. If that was sap, remember the sap does more damage than the AP. Significantly more. Yeah, that salvo would have been like 50% heavier, right? So probably should have used sap. I was really, really, really hoping that guy would fuck up and go flat right before I lost the ability to clear the island on him. But like the midways here, I don't want to get crossfired. It's just, you're allowed to play more central too. Typically the Venezias was always kind of best kiting on a flank. The ledge mod just lets you bot the fuck out in the middle of the map constantly too. And it's this constant ability to play aggressive that makes it less trolling on your team, because if I want to push in really hard and help my destroyer, and then I have to smoke to run away, I can do that. And then in barely more than a minute, I can come and do it again, right? But I'm pushing in with this heavy sap, with this much better reload, right? This much higher, 18% improved damage output compared to a standard Venezia build. So, like I said, it really is, eating your cake and having it. And kind of in a way that most ledge mods do not allow you to have. Some of these newer ones definitely, kind of qualify as objectively correct choices. I hit a bunch of turrets. I just aimed too low or too far behind. Ships like the GK, Preußen, Kremlin, These actually are ships where it can make sense to load AP. Because your sap does not pen any of their side platings, and they have very significant icebreakers, making going for bow and stern pens very ineffective at longer range, like this kind of range, 15 kilometers. Um, and so, especially once that superstructure, takes 1, 10, 15K hit, uh, just going for main belt, upper belt with AP, Venezia has very respectable AP penetration and very good impact angles. So you do retain a very significant amount of penetration at long range. Um, so here, I should have shot right away. Should have shot right away. I'm waiting because I thought this guy would accelerate, and I should have just pulled the trigger instantaneously. I should never have assumed that, never assume the enemy is a good player when you have a chance to shoot them, right? Mistake was made, admittedly. Still a pretty decent hit, though. That's definitely a situation where you want the AP. If I had just pulled the trigger right away on his underneath his front guns, that probably could have just been a dev strike. Just 100%. I was thinking that this guy would just accelerate, and I didn't want to underlead him. Yeah, mistake. But yeah, we're just burning through the smokes because we got spotted again. It's like every time you get spotted, you can just reposition. And this Wisconsin's kind of been shooting me a lot, So there's just no reason to give up damage until I kind of get in a more isolated situation. This is cringe as fuck. Just pretend you're not watching right now. The fact that I am sitting here and trying to slow down and hoping that 2 or 3 of my fucking shells in this salvo will clear this island and hit this guy. That is, wow, dude. Sometimes you make yourself cringe watching your gameplay. That is ridiculous. That is actually fucking so greasy to sit there and hope that 1 or 2 shells can clear and sit that guy. That's disgusting. Why am I doing that? I don't know. So Wisconsin and Montana now are making a very big mistake. They are divved together, but they are now on the same line. I have no idea why one of them isn't running east as fast as he can. Because they now have 0 battleship crossfire. They have absolutely no crossfire, so the only ships that I have to angle to on the entire map are all on the 5 line. So it's going to let me, as soon as I get this Edgar kill, it's going to let me push up very, very easily. If this Wisconsin was beaming it, running it down east flank, down the C line, to get over 8-9 line, this game would be very sketchy. Right now, as you can see, it's quite even. Very even on points, very even on ships, very even on HP. We're up a little bit, but and this Brisbane is going to really help me out. What can you really say? I mean, that's again definitely a target you load the AP for. I mean, just absolutely cooked. Absolutely cooked. Monty gets the kill. He probably would have been dead to my rear guns anyway, but yeah, fat cruisers with above water citadels, it's AP for sure, for sure, for sure. Anything really almost anything within about 17, 18 kilometers, even stuff like Stalin and Moskva, 100%. Des Moines, yeah, you can very, very easily take 30k off them, and of course it's citadel damage, so it's always just kind of more meaningful. Even if you're getting comparable damage, I would still roll for the citadels because, yeah, a flat broadside Des Moines, even with sap, you're gonna super reliably hit him for 15 to 20k. But even if you get 15k and 3 citadels, that's still a more game impactful salvo. Here I want you to look at the kind of damage this salvo gets us. Almost exactly 3 and 3. We hit 6 shells on the deck, 3 pens, 3 ricochets. That's what I mean by when I said that you can get some deck pens. There you go, 15,000. I mean, you realize, these ships that have 80,000 health, like this Wisconsin, that is 20% of their ship removed almost in one sap salvo. So yes, the Venezia does not farm in the sense that a Hindenburg or Henry will with the fires. But I mean, you see that we just did 23,000, no, sorry, almost 25,000 damage with 2 salvos on this guy. And yeah, we might have done 15k in a fire, and there's another 10k almost. The Venezia is extremely oppressive. honestly a like top 5 most toxic cruiser in the game. I really do think, and this is what I mean. Like, I just park here. Like, I don't even need to use it to disengage because this Wisconsin is not going to live more than like 3 or 4 more salvos. Just park in his mouth, just camped in the smoke. You saw that he activated his combat instructions, so I was like, yeah, fuck it, we're gonna just use the smoke. Perfectly knows in, he still takes 8K. And remember, he's saturated, right? This is what I mean. This guy is fully saturated on his superstructure, and I'm still getting 8K when he's perfectly nose in. I mean, for the love of God, Wargaming, we've got to buff Sap. Sap is just such a weak ammo type. It can't even start fires. I mean, we've got to buff it. I think Sap should be able to start fires. Come on. His upper belt, his superstructure, like all of this whole hit basically is saturated boat. Like, doesn't even matter. I mean, it's crazy. And these salvos, again, because of this build, they're coming every like 16 seconds, right? It's I think that the ledge mod has really put Venezia in a very like extremely strong state. It was always a solid crew. It was always a very solid like decent cruiser, and it was always demonic when paired with a destroyer because you could run full conceal Venezia with like what is it 12.5-ish kilometer concealment, and you could just tool along 6-7 kilometers behind your Shima or your Yu Yang or Gearing or whatever, and he would run into the enemy destroyer who would instantly turn out to get disengage, and then you would just pop up on their forehead at like 12, 12.5, and Venezia does not fucking miss destroyers at 12 kilometers. Like, it does not. It's a guaranteed 8 to 15k at 12 km, depending on the DD. Some like Shima take a little bit less, or Gearing or Yu Yang, but anything that's tall, like man, Hollands, your Shima player runs into a Holland and you're in full conceal Venezia, and it's just GG. I mean, it's G fucking G for that guy. He's taking like 15 plus K damage in one salvo, right? So this ledge mod has just put this ship in the always relevant status. No matter how the game is going, like let's say you're getting humped by a sub and a CV. Well, you only have to get spotted for like a minute at a time, and you can burn through the smokes and live. You're getting focused by a bunch of enemy ships. You can burn through the smokes. You want to push in. It doesn't cost you hardly anything to use. Using 1 of 5 smokes, and they have a minute 15 cooldown, is so much less costing you than normal Venezia, where you use a third of your smokes instead of a fifth, and then you have an almost 3-minute cooldown on them, right? Here you see why Exhibit A, why I take rudder in slot 4 instead of prop mod. Even in this like 12 to 16 kilometer range, you can very, very reliably dodge the vast majority of shells that most battleships will shoot at you. Generally speaking, I've said it in many of these videos, rudder is for close range fighting, and prop is for long range fighting or for rock camping. But on the Venezia, rudder is excellent. It would be my recommendation. We'll go over the specs soon here. This game is over, but it's just the kind of damage. It's 18. Like I said, our damage is 18% improved because we're running Lighthouse build. But then it doesn't cost us anything. Like, we just looked at Henry, and Henry gives up a lot to run Lighthouse. I mean, you can never really push in. I mean, that little meme replay aside, right? That first one. But, generally speaking, you can't just, push into battleships. Your nose just gets shit on, right? You don't have disengaged with a smokescreen like Venezia has. So you are, in Lighthouse Henry, kind of making a conscious decision, loading into Lighthouse Henry into the lobby, that you are going to farm damage on the back line, right? And then the Venezia, can farm damage on the back line, but it can also constantly make these darts into the middle of the map, darts into the caps, like you saw in that first replay, just pushing through the cap. It's like, yeah, I might die, but I'm gonna like guarantee my team gets the cap, runs ships off it, and gets a kill or two, right? The kind of play you'd absolutely never be able to make in something like a Henry or any of these other cruisers that don't have this fuel smoke. Um, yeah, I think Venezia is in a really good spot. Like I said in my review of the Golden Lion Ledge mod, the ship is basically not even worth playing without the Ledge mod. It's just that good. It's that cancerous to play with Ledge mod and then try to play without it. It's pure suffering. It's the kind of thing where it's like, would I grind this line? I would. If you have the 20,000 Research Bureau points, you got 20k RB points to throw on Ledge mod, then absolutely grind this line. It's really fun. The Venezia with Ledge mod compared to the Brindisi feels like you went from a like decent tier 9 to a really decent super ship. Venezia, of course, in my opinion, being the super ship of the line. Much like I said with Legmon Petro is basically the super ship of the Petro line. The Novosibirsk is pretty much dog shit outside of overmatching the funny little tiny boats, and the exact same thing is true of the Piemonte. The gun caliber lets you overmatch the funny cruisers that Wargaming despises. Wargaming hates you if you're in a 16 mil plating cruiser. They despise you. They wish you wouldn't play them, apparently, because every fucking ship that comes out in Super Ship, Tier 10, Premium, whatever, has the ability to just punch straight through the nose of your Minnow, your G-Nan, and just fucking one-shot you at any angle. Very cool, very cool. So yeah, Venezia cannot do that. But in all other ways, pretty much a more enjoyable and superior experience to the Piemonte. As always, starting with the equipment, it's standard, pretty much completely standard Lighthouse build equipment. Really, the only thing here that maybe is slightly different is we are running steering gears instead of propulsion mod. Um, and then obviously the ledge mod. It's so fascinating to me that this is in slot 5. Like, I can only assume that Wargaming has internal data that says every single Venezia player was running like range and concealment or something, because I have no idea. I have truly no idea why this is in this slot. Um, because your almost objectively correct choice was always steering gears. I said this about Goliath, how like you almost might as well go Lighthouse because steering gears is still objectively almost correct, and like steering gears on Venezia was so demonically good. Like it made Lighthouse playable even with like only 3 smokes a game, because you have almost, you're getting down to like close to destroyer turning circle. You have 760. Which is way better, 40 meters better than any of these other ships we've looked at, but you have terrible rudder shift. This is with 20% reduction, right? You have something like a 13.2-ish, I want to say, standard rudder shift. So you have horrible, almost battleship level rudder shift on Venezia, but then you have insane turn on a dime turning circle. So steering gears on Venezia was like insane. Nobody could hit you in this thing. Like playing in the 15 to 17 kilometer range, like nobody could hit you in this thing because you could just literally just wait. Oh, the shells are coming in from rear to right to left. Oh, let me just fucking dodge that whole bullshit salvo. So unless you were paired with a DD and you were trying to push in close to get those big funny hits on DDs, the steering gears mod was like always what I ran on Ven. It was always kind of better than concealment. And so, like, obviously, steering gears was run for survivability, but, like, this is way more survivability outright than the steering gears. But then it's also enabling you to play hyper aggressive more times per game, stay alive way longer, get yourself out of jail when you fuck up. I don't know, man. I I don't know. I guess they didn't want you to have full conceal Ven with this ledge bob, but like to me it should be in slot 6. Like I would like if this was in slot 6, that would suck. Like it would be trade off, because the whole, especially you have to think of like what is the point of ledge mod Ven? The whole entire fucking point is you play Lighthouse. Like that is the purpose of it. Or you play very little concealment. So it's like you don't even care if you're taking this. you wouldn't probably build for concealment no matter what. So if you had to give up DPM, if you had to give up 12% DPM on the Ven to get these extra smokes and the cooldown on them, then that would be like a maybe, I still probably want it, but that does suck that I'm nerfing my DPM. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's crazy, but we're definitely running a spotting aircraft, obviously. Captain build is a full standard Lighthouse build. I don't think there's really anything. The only thing maybe you might want to change is grabbing Last Stand instead of Consumable Specialist. I just grabbed this for it takes a little bit of time off of your smoke. Without this, you probably have like a 125-ish second reload, and this gives you like a 115. It might get your smoke back like 5-6 seconds faster. Does that really, spotter plane 10 seconds faster? Does that really matter? Probably not. You're probably better off with Last Stand. But for sure, Eye in the Sky. Trying to improve the smoke by 4.5 seconds is pure fucking bait. Pure fucking bait. Eye in the Sky, 100% better. Like I said, any cruiser that has usable base range. I said this, I think in the Hindenburg video. Any cruiser with usable base range and a spotter plane, you should just run Eye in the Sky. It's just kind of like that fucking good. Not even just always to farm at range. I mean, you saw in that first replay, I popped a spotter to see what the Montana was doing, right? I would not have had access to that spotter. Normal spotter plane is like a 4-minute cooldown. Eye in the Sky spotter is like 2 minutes up, 2 minutes down. You get to actually use multiple spotters per game. 100%. This is like objectively top dog skill in line 2 on cruisers that can take it. And then obviously heavy sap, heavy HE. Nerfing the concealment, but giving you juicy sap damage. Top grade gunner. I think with this build, the concealment is actually worse than the gun range. Yeah, 17.6 and then 17.1. But 17.1 is totally usable. If this was, I said this about Zhao, if this was 16.3 or whatever Zhao is, that would be tough. That would be pretty tough, and I would probably recommend range mod. But 17.1 with Eye in the Sky, pretty comfy, pretty damn usable. You definitely want turret traverse, by the way. I should mention that. This is with Grease the Gears, 25.7, because, of course, the Venezia is not a battleship. I mean, if this was, the Venezia's turrets probably weigh, as much as, 2 or 3, maybe as much as both of my cars, right? And then the Loria turrets weigh, 5 times as much as my house. So, of course, the Loria turrets can turn faster than the Venezia turrets can turn. Any further questions? No further questions? Okay, I'm glad we sorted that one out. It makes sense. Trust me on this. It does make sense. You are just thinking too much. Think less. It will make sense. Armor layout. You get eaten alive by 30 overmatch, but less so. But definitely less so. The icebreaker and the part on the stern helps you out a lot. It really does help you out a lot. And your outer armor, you have a bit of spaced armor, is crucially not overmatchable. Crucially, this is not overmatchable. Why is that super crucial? Because you would say, well, if a battleship with 457s gets you and pens this, it's going to probably Citadel you. But I don't know if I've talked about this. This game has something called shell normalization. Anytime a shell passes through a layer of armor, it marginally deflects inward. So that would mean, let's say you're at a 35-degree angle in the vent, okay? And a shell penetrated your armor belt. After penetrating your armor belt, it would no longer be traveling into your hull at a 35-degree angle. Depending on the caliber of the shell, it will now be traveling around a 40 to 45-degree angle. It depends on the caliber a lot. It depends on the specific AP round. So let's say you are being shot at with a ship that can pen you at 30 and will pen you at 45, which is kind of like your standard, can pen you at 45, will pen you at 60, right? So at 45, like this angle, it starts to gain the chance to pen you, and then at 60 degrees, it definitely will penetrate you. That's kind of the that's kind of like, let's just say that's happening, okay? Let's say you're angled in and shells have a chance to pen you. Well, here's the thing. If this like a lot of these other tier 10 cruisers is made out of 30 and a Vermont hits you, it doesn't check for ricochet, right? Because it's overmatching you. It's passing through this outer layer of armor, guaranteed, no questions asked. But now all of a sudden, it's been normalized. So now all of a sudden, that shell is going to strike your citadel at, with something like Vermont AP, I want to say that's around a 7 or 8 degree better angle, more favorable angle for penetrating you. And so now all of a sudden, you just take a gigantic fucking smash citadel hit. And you see the citadel on this thing; it's well above water. I mean, this thing goes flat and it blows the fuck up, right? But that outer layer being non-overmatchable is one of the most crucial advantages you can have against overmatch. If you have any kind of spaced armor and a vulnerable citadel when you're flat, it's super, super crucial that the outermost layer cannot be overmatched. This is why a ship like Iowa, for example, takes way, way, way more citadels at kind of wonky angles than some other ships that have, say, like like imagine Wisconsin Citadel wasn't a submarine, right? Wisconsin would by default, even if it had Iowa's citadel height, take a lot less citadels from things like Yamato, Satsuma, because it's like super crucial. There's many situations where if this was 30, you would go from bouncing like 8 out of 10 hits and taking like one internal ricochet on the citadel and one citadel, and then you would instantly go from like that Vermont salvo, for example, would pass 10 shells straight through you, and now because they have such an improved angle of approach on the citadel itself, then all of a sudden like you go from taking 5-10k to like you just get fucking blown out of the water, right? That's something you definitely want to consider on anything with spaced armor. Anything with spaced armor, if you get overmatched in the outermost layer of armor, these shells, your angling is not worth as much, right? So you might think, I'm angled at 30 degrees. Yeah, he's going to overmatch my side plating, but, excuse me, he's going to ricochet on my internal citadel belt. Maybe not, right? You got to angle a lot more than you think you do in a lot of these ships. That's something pretty crucial to keep in mind. Now, one thing also worth mentioning is it is 165 surrounded by 40. So you have 405 spaced armor. And this, again, like with a lot of these other cruisers we've looked at, like Henry, you can kind of go flat to like non-ridiculous cruiser AP. Like Venezia can kind of go flat to itself around like 18 kilometers. And it's unlikely you'll take a citadel, right? But now, we looked at Henry. Henry has really improved AP pen, really, really high AP pen. So, like, against something like that, Moskva, anything with really big caliber AP, you go flat, you take sits, you just do. But you do kind of get away with a little bit because you're just short. I mean, I think it's, somewhat apparent in the video, but, like, you're just very, very low in the water. Very, very low in the water. And that's why when you're pushing in against things that, only have 406s or less, you're extremely tanky. The superstructure is not that big. The bow that's 25 isn't really that big either. So when you're approaching, a Montana at this kind of an angle, there's just so little real estate for him to shoot. And if I take away the nose and put it back multiple times, this is overpen territory, right? I've said this in many of these videos about cruiser noses, is you push in at this slight angle. That's why you don't want to be perfectly nose in. Being perfectly nose in is bait in a lot of cruisers. You want to be a little bit of an angle. Like this angle right here is infinitely better pushing nose in to things that don't overmatch you than being perfectly nose in. Because you go perfectly nose in and anything that gets through the nose, it's going to arm, right? It's going to arm. But when you're pushing in on this angle, then all of a sudden you've like basically cut out 2/3 of the real estate that can become a full pen. Full pens can happen here near the turrets, right? But now obviously against something like a Vermont at 2 kilometers, I would probably park nose in and just be like, please don't 40k me, make it only 25, dear Wargaming, right? But yeah, anything that, if you're in any cruiser and you're only overmatched through the upper bow, you absolutely want to be at like a 10-ish degree angle rather than perfectly nose in, because you will just take less damage almost universally. Okay, bit of a tangent. That is going to do it for Venezia. If you got the research points laying around, I'll just repeat myself. 100% worth it. Super fun to play and quite strong with the ledge mod. If you don't have the ledge mod points, can't spare them, don't want to invest them, just kind of win it, grind the line if you don't have it. Now, if you have it, love it without the ledge mod, that's fine too, and you like full conceal. But I can't really personally recommend it unless you are going to invest in the ledge mod. Then it becomes like an incredibly strong and very, very fun Tier 10 cruiser. Definitely worth playing. A lot of game impact. That is going to do it. I think that's kind of the end of the Goliath, Henry Venn. I think that's kind of the end of the ships I objectively consider best in a Lighthouse form. So we're probably going to move into a few of these other cruisers in the tech tree. Yeah. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.